Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order, welcome to Hapanwo TV. But I'm in Oxford at the moment, but this is not actually a video about Oxford. This is, I'm actually going to London. I'm actually heading for the coach station right now to get a coach to London. And the reason is I'm going to see an event in London. I'm actually going to Greenwich Skeptics in the pub yet again. Yes, I'm going there. I've been there a few times, but it's going to be slightly different this time because I'm going as myself. See the link in the description box to my previous trip to Greenwich SiTP. Yeah, I'm going as myself. I'm not wearing my disguise. Now, the person I'm going to see, the actual speaker, is someone called Professor Karen Douglas, who I've mentioned several times on this channel. Because she is a research psychologist who studies the psychology of conspiracy theorists. So, in other words, she studies tinfoil hat wearing loonies like me. That's good. There's a guy playing guitar there. Pretty good though. You get a lot of them in Oxford. And so that's where I'm heading now. I'm always thinking, am I going to get there and find it if it's still on? Because this event with Professor Douglas has been cancelled twice before, and I was saying to him, I did say at the time, oh, has she been warned off or something? Because she said some very interesting things, which I'll talk about in a minute, but which kind of means she's not what I expected. Because I first met Professor Douglas in 2011 at the British Humanist Association's Conspiracy Theory Day at the Conway Hall, which I've written an article about. I'll put a link in the description box to that. It's a very, very good, it was a great event where the sort of skeptic world and the conspiracy theory merged into one in surprising harmony. Everyone had good fun. It was a great day. But she was there talking, basically just taking the standard skeptic line, all the various usual psycho-skeptic tropes about why people believe in conspiracy theories and the various fallacies and logical breakdowns and things like that, and cognitive dissonance of conspiracy theories. Yeah, it's usual things. So it wasn't terribly interesting, but since then she seems to have changed her position, and she's written an article for a research magazine, which is based on a project she did working at the University of Kent, which tells a very different story, and I'll go into that. And in a sense, it's like what she said puts her very much at odds with the conspirasphere, very much at odds with the skeptosphere. A sort of more, I wouldn't say on our side, but surprisingly. Well, I'll go into details in a minute, but anyway, I think I'm suitably attired. I'm going there basically just to show the flag. I went to the thing with the Ian Ridpath. I wrote an article about that. I'm not going to put a link in the description box to that. But I think someone needs to go and show the tinfoil hat wearing flag, so to speak. So it's going to be me. As always, I'm going to be perfectly polite and perfectly civilised. You know me, not of course any trouble. I actually met Professor Douglas actually in 2016 when I spoke at the ASAP Seriously Suspicious conference, and we had a long conversation. It was very, very interesting too. She's a nice lady, very interesting to talk to. Now, when I say showing the flag, I've designed my attire to make my partisanship unmistakable. So I've got my Truth Seekers North East hat on. I've got, Exopolitics Great Britain on that wristband. I've got Fight the New World Order on that wristband. Look at my t-shirt. Some UFOs are real. So no one is going to be in any doubt whose team I'm batting for. But it should be fun. There's a nice atmosphere there. Chris French is the guy who runs it, and he's a skeptic, but he's someone I actually quite like. He organised the conference I spoke at where Dr. Douglas also spoke. So, with no further ado, I'm going to head to London, go and get the coach and get myself down there. Just in case, the good news is, I'm aware that this has been cancelled twice before, so if I get there and suddenly find it's off, it won't be a wasted journey, because I'm actually going to shoot another film while I'm down there, which, if you haven't seen yet, then it means I haven't uploaded it yet.
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about where I'm going this evening. I'm going to this event, The Psychology of Conspiracy Theories, Wednesday, September the 5th at 7:30 p.m. It tells you when it is, as I just said. The Psychology of Conspiracy Theories is the title of the talk. Where? The Star and Garter, same pub as always. And who? Professor Karen Douglas. And here's a little bit, there's a little section here where she gets to talk about what her lecture is all about. Was 9/11 an inside job? Is climate change a hoax? Was Princess Diana murdered? Well, my answer to that is yes, yes, and yes. She goes on. Millions of people appear to think so. Yep, and I'm one of them. So I'm interjecting at certain times. I'll try to make it clear where I'm interjecting and where she's speaking. Disbelieving official explanations for significant events in favour of alternative accounts that are often called conspiracy theories, quote unquote. In recent years, psychologists have begun to investigate what makes a conspiracy theories appealing to so many people. The answer to that is because they're factually true in many cases. Anyway, I don't think she's going to go into the facts area. She's going to go into the psychology. I'll let her continue. In this talk, I will broadly overview what psychologists have found out so far, and we'll discuss some of my own findings on the causes and consequences of conspiracy theory belief. And underneath it says a little bit about her by the organisers. Karen Douglas is a professor in social psychology at the University of Kent. In addition to conducting work on the psychology of conspiracy theories, she's involved in projects examining sexism in language. Oh, my little Orwellian alarm bells are ringing here. The influence of sexist ideology on the attitudes towards pregnant women. All right. I've got again my little marksy little red flags going up here. And the psychology of internet behaviour. Oh my goodness, that can't be pleasant. You don't have to actually do a psychological research project to learn about the psychology of internet behaviour, and it's pretty horrible actually. It brings out the worst in people by far. It seems to turn ordinary people into monsters. And I don't know if she'd agree with me on that, but that's certainly what I have found out. There's only one thing to do. Let's get to London, get to Greenwich, and hear what she has to say.
Okay, I'm walking down Old Woolwich Road towards the Star and Garter pub, which is the venue. I had a bit of a panic moment about an hour ago, because I thought I didn't double check where the venue was, whether they changed it. And luckily, a very nice man in a mobile phone shop helped me out, and he looked it up for me. And yes, it is the Star and Garter pub. I've still got one of these old mobile phones that just makes calls, a bit boring. And here we are at the Meridian Primary School. And again, it shocks me how. Well, I've said this before, but I think I might have said it when I was here last, actually. It does shock me how much schools resemble concentration camps in today's world. It really does. Look at that fence. I better start digging a tunnel tonight, lads. Be careful what you write. All mail will be censored. For you, Tommy, the war is over. Yeah, look at that. You can all imagine the guy with a tin helmet guarding it. No, Meridian Primary School. Now, obviously it's named after the Greenwich Meridian, which actually is somewhere in this area. I know it goes through the Greenwich Observatory, which is just to the north of here. Now, where the actual line is not actually marked, but it's actually a line that divides the world in two. The prime meridian of all the other meridians that will go all the way around the world. They're the vertical lines on the grid, on the global grid. I'm fascinated by maps. I am. The thing about it is, though, it'd be interesting to know where it was, because on one side is the eastern hemisphere, on one side the western hemisphere, and all longitudes are measured from there. All the longitudes come either east or west of the Greenwich Meridian. The thing about it is, though, I mean, it's a purely artificial construct. I mean, there's no mark, there's no geographical mark anywhere. And indeed, you could put the prime meridian somewhere else, and they used to. They used to go through Paris. It was called the Rose Line. Any fans of Dan Brown will know all about that. And some people suggest that the prime meridian should be moved. It should actually be moved to Giza, the Giza Plateau in Egypt, because it'll make more sense, because that's where you get these great monuments. Also, it divides the world, the world's land masses into virtually 4 equal quarters, because you'll get quarters because you'll have the equator, and you get the 4 quarters caused by the prime meridian. The land masses of the world is basically the equal amount of land and ocean in all those 4 quarters. Rand Flemath has written about that, but anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Here's the venue. I'm going to nip in there and have a pint before it all starts. And I'm myself today, so there we are. See you later. Okay, I just left the pub. I don't know what time it is. I did stay for the end this time. It's interesting stuff. I've got to try and hold holding my map and my notes here. It's too late to get the boat. I think I'm going to get to the station. I don't want to risk missing the last boat, which is a shame because I much prefer travelling by boat. But you know, it's interesting. It went ahead. She was there. So, like I said, 3rd time lucky. As I said earlier, this has been cancelled twice before, and I did think that the GCHQ had got hold of her and told her not to. But well, it was a bit of a bad news because. Yeah, she talks about various conspiracy theories, flat Earth. She says, what do you think of conspiracy theories, flat Earth? Paul is dead, Elvis is alive. Very simplistic stuff she goes through, and she admits this is a simplistic view of things, and she actually posted a picture of a man with a tinfoil hat, and I thought she was going to take the piss, but she said, no, this is your popular image of a conspiracy theorist. White, middle-aged man with a tinfoil hat. Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, it's not entirely unjustified, I must say. Most people in this community are mature. I mean, there are some younger people. They tend to be mature, and yes, they are white, and they tend to be male. And there's the reasons for that. I explained in my last UFO Truth Conference video, I think. But she talks about all kinds of different conspiracy theories, belief in the New World Order, immigration lies by the government. Interestingly, this really did shock me. I mean, not completely, because I have actually covered this before, that actual conspiracy theoretical belief is more widespread than you might think, based on the number of people who speak openly about it, like me. What I mean by that is that there's been several studies done, and I've written about this. I mean, I think I've done videos about. I mentioned this in a video. I think at least one video. That there's several surveys giving out a number of different conspiracy theory ideas, and that how many people believed in them. And it was done in America by the Gallup survey group, which is the biggest public opinion statistics group in the world. So it was a Gallup poll, and I was really surprised about how high it was. The biggest, of course, is JFK, the king of, the ultimate being JFK. 51% of people. It's based in the United States, but there's been similar results in other countries. I don't know how much. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can hear me. 51% of Americans believe that JFK was killed by a conspiracy. Oswald wasn't the only shooter, and that is pretty good. I mean, it's been over 50% since the event actually happened in November 1963. I think I'm going the right way. Trafalgar Road, that's right. I've got to go down here. I'm trying not to look at my map, basically, because I've got my holding notebook. There's been others mentioned, such as the Roswell's about 20%. 9/11, depending on how it's worded, I mean, for instance, LIHOP people, let it happen on purpose people, which is a form of government complicity, it can be up to 40%. But even those who are the MyHops, like me, made it happen on purpose, 11%. That's a lot. The alien conspiracies and stuff like that, again, similar results, 20 to 40%. And she said that her own, Professor Douglas's own research indicated that up to 40% of people believe that the world is controlled by a secret cabal of some kind or another, some description or another, various types, whether it's the Jewish elite, or if you're left-wing, the corporate globalists, etc., corporate big-time capitalists and things like that. It depends how you know. Up to 40% of people believe that, which is extraordinary. What it means is that this is the question, isn't it? Because how come I go on to probe and there's only 50 people there, whereas you go to a football match, there's like 80,000. If you go to watch Manchester United, 80,000 people go and watch Manchester United. Yet 40% of the people, 40% of the people in the world. Look at that. Sorry, just to interrupt. That is the Greenwich College there. It's a big maritime college there. Just saying that 40% of people in the world don't support Manchester United. Otherwise, Old Trafford would have to be 20 times of the size that it is. So why is it? Why is that? What it means that people like me, loudmouth, blog writing, YouTube branding, conspiracy theorists, are a very tiny little vocal tip of a huge silent iceberg. So perhaps the challenge for people like me, people who are actually activists in this particular milieu, it's not the question of educating the public, it's a question of persuading the public to take action on the knowledge that they have. And firstly to gain more knowledge, because obviously a lot of these people, a lot of that 40% only have a superficial idea. They haven't got the knowledge, they haven't got the evidence, they haven't researched it. But my goal is therefore to persuade them to research deeper and learn more, and then to act on the knowledge they have. Not to learn that the conspiracy exists, but to learn more about the conspiracy that they know exists. That's very interesting indeed. She talks about there's all kinds of things like the US. She talks about American conspiracies, such as in America in particular, a lot of people disbelieve in the official story of climate change, and indeed I do. But she said, scientists don't get trusted in this field very often, people like her. But you know, she talked about climate change. She said, it's a big scam just to get funding. The climatologists just want funding, and so they sort of tacitly conspired with this thing to just make sure they get lots of money. And the answer, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. It's like this guy, I think I mentioned him before. He's actually an Oxford statistician. I'll get the details when I get home. But he actually said that he didn't believe in conspiracy theories because he worked out that they wouldn't, because based on the number of people who had to be involved and the natural tendency of people to keep secrets, they wouldn't have survived more than about 2 or 3 years, such as the moon landings and vaccination. They wouldn't have survived more than about 2 years. But he makes the assumptions that everyone involved is separated into just two different parts. People who are in the know, not initiated and active within this deceit, this level of deception, and those who are not have no knowledge at all, and if they did have that knowledge, they would immediately expose it. And that, I think, is a misjudgment of human nature, quite frankly. I don't know what Professor Douglas thinks about that, but she talks about that. How come there's no nice conspiracy theories? Why conspiracy theories are always nasty? They're always bad. But they're not all bad. I mean, well, most of them are, it's got to be admitted, but then that's just being realistic. There are nice conspiracy theories. I mean, there's one in particular, which I hope is true because it's very heartwarming. Now, Mount Everest, tallest mountain in the world, climbed in 1954, I believe, or 55, by two people, Sir Edmund Hillary, a New Zealander, and Tenzing Norgay, who was a local Nepalese from the Sherpa culture. Now, when they got things, the two men were very close. They're great friends their whole lives, and they both stepped onto the summit of Mount Everest together. They held hands, and they took the final step onto the summit together. So both of them climbed the mountain at the same time. Neither wanted to go ahead of the other. They wanted to do it together. But when they got back to the base camp, they were made to sign some documents. And Tenzing was told to sign these documents, saying, "Oh, so it's just a bit of a routine administration, you know. Don't worry about it, mate. Just sign here, you know. Just caveats and disclaimers, etc. You know, the legal stuff." And where do I go from here? So I've got to look at the map a moment. I believe I go. Got to find some light first. Hold the line. I've got a bear left along here. Yeah, I've got to keep going. I've got a bear left, yeah. The thing is, though, Tenzing didn't know what these documents were because he couldn't read English. He could speak it, but he couldn't read it. These documents actually said, I, Sherpa Tenzing Norgay, did see Edmund Hillary walk ahead of me and step onto the summit of Mount Everest alone. Therefore, he's the man who first climbed Everest, and I came up second. Poor Norgay, basically they tricked him, because for some reason, whatever reason, for the expedition sponsors or whatever it was, they wanted Hillary to be the first man, for political reasons or whatever. I don't know, racism, I don't know what it is. Racism does exist, I'm not denying that. So they tricked him, they had him stoned, he signed the document, the witness document, and that was it. The thing is, they needed Hillary's cooperation. So they approached him and they told him what they'd done. And they said, look, mate, look, you've got the glory. We've just tricked Tenzing into saying you went first. All you have to do is confirm this, and you alone will have the glory in the history books. And you know what? Hillary refused to betray his friend. He said, no, absolutely not. He kicked up an absolute fuss about it, and he got it reversed. Now, I wish there were more people like that in the world, I really do. I hope I'm going the right way. I think I am. Just one moment, I have to stop filming because I've got to navigate. Okay, I'm on the Docklands Light Railway now. As you can see, it's like it's an automatic train. There's a guy driving it at the moment, but it is normally it's a robot train. I did a video about robots and how they were taking over everything. But as I said, I did a video about how robots were taking over everything, but it's like robots don't look like the robots of science fiction. They're very often like this. This is a robot. Now we're talking about nice conspiracy theories. I'm talking about Everest, the Mount Everest conspiracy, which is a nice conspiracy theory. So there are happy conspiracy theories, but there's also Professor Douglas then went on to talk about the measurement she uses for she called it measurement, and she talked about the conspiracist mindset and the way it satisfies people. So she mentioned on epistemic reading, which means about gaining knowledge. So you feel safe, you have control, so you gather knowledge which makes you feel safe and makes you in control, keeps you in control. That's an epistemic reason to need. Epistemic means gathering knowledge and how you gather knowledge. So it's cognitive abilities and things like that. It also creates self-esteem and gives you a feeling of being in an in-group. And, well, you know, I've talked about this. You can see me reflected there. You can't see much out the windows this time of day. Yeah, well, I've talked about this. I mean, I've admitted this effectively, that the conspiracy theory community is kind of like an in-group. It is something I belong to. It's something I'm a part of. It's belonging. It's having friends, and especially seen as we're kind of comrades in arms in a battle against the New World Order. And I'm the first to admit that that does build bonds between people in the face of adversity. We're united. Not united enough. As I said in my video, is there any hope? It reduces uncertainty, it provides explanations, it gives meaning, and she also claims it doesn't work. These are her words, not mine. This is her opinion of the conspiratorial world. I think there's more to it than that, and I'll go into that in a minute, but it gives meaning and things like that, and that, I think, is what she was saying. This is the same thing that Professor French has said, actually, and Rob Brotherton is the guy who's sort of like his young apprentice. And we have like Professor Douglas also mentions what Michael Barkin calls the cultic milieu. So she says that if you happen to believe in psychics or UFOs, etc., you're far more likely to believe in conspiracy theories as well. And my challenge to her is, yes, but there's a skeptic milieu too, which I talk about in my skeptics video. You watch my skeptics video. I'll have to put a link in the description box if I can remember all these damn links. So basically, it's a pattern recognition thing, really. That's what it is. It's pattern recognition. Now, she also mentions proportionality bias. So if an ordinary person gets in a car and goes into a tunnel and crashes and dies, no one cares. But if Princess Diana does it, then people start looking for conspiracies, she says. I think Nick Pope says something very similar at the 2011 Weird 11 conference, I remember. There we are. It's a true robot now. You look, no driver. It's the robots are taking over, and they are taking over. But that's a subject for another time. Again, this doesn't make the thing about it is though with Diana. I mean, and I've made this point. If an ordinary person had been in that car crash, then the tunnel would have been closed for at least 12 hours, so that accident investigators could go in and ascertain what had happened. The fact of the matter is, the tunnel was open within 2 hours. So I think this is maybe what Professor Douglas misses, that the fact is that it's about evidence. The difference between Diana and an ordinary person, it's not just proportionality bias for major events produce more CTs, conspiracy theories, but it is about the very fact that there is evidence for a cover-up. It's about evidence. And someone asked her, you know, do you believe in conspiracy theories? She said, no, not really. Well, I actually put my hand up and asked a question. I'll come to that in a minute, but it's an important point. Is there evidence of it? Excuse me. I don't think she's addressed this. I don't think she's considered this. She appears to be simply working from the presumption that most or all conspiracy theories are derived out through evidential work, but rather through a psychological need and logical fallacies. I think that seems to be the assumption she's working under. I mean, she can correct me if I'm wrong there. She also says that people project moral standards, so that if people... This was a new one on me.
This is Cross Harbour.
People were asked, well, would you carry out one of these attacks? For instance, would you kill Princess Diana? Would you conspire to murder her? And apparently some people said, yes, I would. And they're the people most likely to believe it was a conspiracy. This is very bizarre, and well, obviously if it's true, then it's true. I mean, she's the one who's done the research, not me. But I don't think I would ever do that. I've never met anyone in the conspiracy sphere who's told me they would do that, who would kill her. And a lot of my work is coming to terms and analysing a situation where indeed most people, the people behind these conspiracies, are essentially different in terms of their psychology to ordinary people, if indeed they are people and not reptilians. I know this is where Slaxer and I have disagree considerably. He says they're just ordinary people who have more power. Now here's the Dubai view of East London, you see, all these big, there's the big Willy over there, the huge phallic symbol, the big Ben stone and the obelisk, yes, my eyes are watering. Now, So that is something completely breaking news for me. That this was all a product of people
South Key.
people who thought that they wouldn't carry out they would never carry out this sort of thing. They would never do a UFO cover-up. They would never do a cover-up of child abuse. They would never do a cover-up of Diana, or they would never conspire to murder a princess. They're the people who didn't believe. They're more likely to not to believe that other people had done this. That is, the people like the Queen or the people in power. Well, that's, as I said, that's breaking news for me. It may be true, but it's not something I've ever heard of before. It's not something I would have thought. She also says that people who are conspiracy theorists tend to have low levels of analytical thinking and education. They more like to see patterns in, or assign agency where agency doesn't exist. Like she showed that animation of the two triangles and the circle in the box, which is quite famous. It's a famous where you get these objects moving randomly and people have to assign agency to them. And like at the end, it looks like their personalities, like the triangles bullying the sphere or something like that. It's a weird thing. She talks about contradictory conspiracy theories. This is odd. Apparently, there are a large number of people who believe that Bin Laden is still alive, but also that Bin Laden's death was faked, and also that Bin Laden died before his supposed assault happened by SEAL Team 6. Obviously, these are contradictory conspiracy theories. Another is that the moon landings were faked, but also that when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon, they were warned off by aliens. There were UFOs waiting for them that basically warned them off the moon, which is why the Apollo program finished early. Obviously, the two cannot both be true. These are contradictory conspiracy theories. The two cannot possibly both be true. But according to Professor Douglas, a lot of people do believe in both together. And again, I've not seen that. I don't understand why anyone would, because when you consider that these two things are oxymoronic. I've never met anyone who believes both of them. I met people who believe one or the other, but not both. But she says, oh, apparently they do, according to her research. She says exposure to conspiracy theories tends to cause more people to believe them in more. Well, that's self-explanatory. That's people who What's happened? I've got to change trains. Oh no, I think it's all right. I think it's just because this is. It's all right. I thought he was telling us we had to change trains. Yeah. So. It's alright, it's just with the Canary Wharf station, there's an intersection here with the tube, that's alright. Yeah, people, where was I? Yeah, people who expose the conspiracy are more likely to believe them. Well, maybe another way of putting that is that people who actually gain knowledge of certain secrets and certain anomalies within the official stories of various things are more likely to address those anomalies. So that's she puts it very in a pejorative way. I would say maybe it could be worded differently in a positive way. She says conspiracy theorists are less likely to engage in politics. That's true, and indeed I was one of those people. But as I've explained before, since 2016, I think the situation has changed. The reason conspiracy theorists engage us in politics is because we believe that politics is a scam, and that the parties are all different faces on different masks on the same face, etc. And I did believe that, but it's changed now. I am more interested in getting involved in mainstream politics now since 2016. I really am. Well, yeah. People sometimes are subconsciously influenced by conspiracy theories. That's it. People who say they are not still do, and I'm not quite sure. I didn't follow exactly what she meant there, but that's what she said. She said that some people, like with the Diana assassination, some people embrace certain doubts of the official story without on a subconscious level, and it comes out in subconscious ways. Again, social motives is upholding self, upholding group identity, in-group preference, etc. I understand that. I'm aware of that, and I'm sure I did kind of feel like I was on the couch with matron. No, I mean, you know what I mean, the psychologist couch. But that brings up an important point, actually. I'll come back to that in a minute. But true words spoken in jest, yeah. A lot of conspiracy theorists are ostracized. Well, that is, in other words, they sort of feel then separate from the herd, and they're pushed out of a lot of mainstream normality. And I do have to admit that has happened to me, and I've had those feelings. This is interesting. Conspiracy theories are highest among low status people. Well, obviously that can't be white heterosexual men then, can it? So, I mean, I don't know if Professor Douglas has realised this, but maybe she will, and it contradicts the social justice warrior situation. Losers in politics tend to be the most conspiratorial. So in the United States, when the Republicans have a president, the Democrats get conspiratorial. When the Democrats get into power, the Republicans become conspiratorial. But apparently that's now different with this one. When someone brought this up in the Q&A. Now, conspiracy theories often involve prejudice against outsiders, people believed to be powerful. Well, you could say that about, like, the Jews, and people who believe that Jews are behind the New World Order. Well, you sense they therefore do have a prejudice against Jewish people, and that's inevitable. Yeah, and there's all kinds of others. I mean, it could be it's the Americans, it's the Muslims, it's the Germans. If you believe Michael Shrimpton, it's the Germans. So, yeah, presumably, well, Shrimpton does suffer from Germanophobia. That's a word. Is it that word, Germanophobia? He does have prejudice against Germans, then. I mean, does he? I mean, he can comment on that, but maybe he does. Narcissistic tendencies. Oh, blimey, I've done an article about that. I don't know if I'll include it in this film. The need for uniqueness. Being in the know. Oh, right. So conspiracy theories make us stand out. They make us they make us feel unique. Well, Michael Barkin actually says something about this, that he said the very fringe element, the very outsider element of the conspiratorial world is what draws people in. People who want that subconsciously. I can't comment, I really can't, but again, does this mean, it could be that affects me, but does this mean that, I mean, my primary concern is, are they true or not? And she does actually admit that conspiracies do happen. Now it's interesting, she actually says that broader studies are needed, because apparently so far all of her work has been based on all the research has been based on undergraduate students. So they've made the sample of the surveys, because her work is based on questionnaires and things like that. So do undergraduate students represent a cross-section, a homogeneous cross-section of the population? The answer is no. They tend to be middle class, they tend to be more intelligent, they tend to be certain cultures and things like that. So they're not a cross-section.
This is Limehouse.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is interesting. She said it's possible to inoculate people against conspiracy theories, and she jokes that's kind of like a metaphor, because she talks about the anti-vaccination conspiracies. But you can inoculate people against conspiracy theories by telling them the facts. Right, yeah. So that's the thing. So, well, again, this all depends on what the facts are. You can't inoculate people against 9/11 conspiracies by telling you that two aircraft, two jet airliners, cannot smash into a building and make it turn into a cloud of dust. Those are facts. That's evidence. That's not going to inoculate. That's going to make you realise that the official story of 9/11 is a lie. And then she says in the end, conspiracies do happen. That's very true. I mean, it's actually true. Conspiracy theories, so-called, are a lot of what is actually history is conspiracy theories told with in retrospect. For example, the Watergate scandal, which brought down the office of President Nixon. in 1972, I believe. That was obviously that was a conspiracy theory that was proven true. Many other conspiracy theories have been proven true. The Manhattan Project, the project to develop the first atomic bomb, that was a conspiracy theory, proven true. The Tuskegee medical experiments, proven true. Jimmy Savile, Ted Heath, these are all conspiracy theories that have been proven true. In fact, it was David Icke who warned people about those first, and no one paid any attention to him. So they are conspiracies do happen. As a fact. I'll talk about the Q&A in a minute. I'm just going to start filming now. I'll do it. I'll talk about the Q&A in a minute because I'm nearly at my station. Okay, well, I'm back in Oxford now. I couldn't really film between now and then. Just going home now. Should be home in half an hour or so. Yeah, the Q&A. Right, I said to Karen, Dr. Douglas, I said I felt like I was on the couch because I'm a conspiracy theorist, I said, but someone had to show the flag. People were nice, they laughed about that. I mean, it was all good natured. Like I said, I was polite. I mean, as much as I disagree, I was polite and I was friendly. You know, they always make me welcome at SiTP. But you know, I did feel in a way, you know, the thing about showing the flag. Yeah, I do feel that actually. That necessity, which is what I made that point when I went to see Ian Ridpath. I went there with Tino, Colin. You know, we felt like somebody from our side should be there, just as a presence. And I said to her, then I brought up the subject of what I'm going to show you, which is this particular. It's a strange thing. I'll show it you now, actually.
It's actually here. It's this article in The Unleashed Mind, Uncover Your True Potential. Oh, that's an interesting title indeed. Scientific study reveals conspiracy theorists most sane of all. If you're a conspiracy theorist, then you're crazy, right? That's been the common belief for years, but recent studies prove that just the opposite is true. That's good news, I must say. Researchers, psychologists and social scientists mostly in the US and the United Kingdom say data indicate that contrary to those mainstream media stereotypes, conspiracy theorists appear to be more sane than people who accept the official version of controversial and contested events. The most recent study was published in 2013 by psychologists Michael J. Wood and Karen M. Douglas, who is going to be doing this talk, at the University of Kent in the UK, entitled What About Building 7? A Social Psychological Study of Online Discussion of 9/11 Conspiracy Theories. The study compared conspiracist or pro-conspiracy theory and conventionalist or anti-conspiracy theory comments on news websites. The researchers noted that they were surprised to find that it is now more conventional to leave so-called conspiracist comments than conventional ones, which I assume means, by leave, it means you don't take them out because they're suitable, they're actually polite, respectful and rational, as opposed to the other side, which is you have to get them out because they get rude and aggressive. And it continues. Yes, here we go. Of the 2,174 comments collected, 1,459 were coded as conspiracist and 715 as conventionalists, Karen Douglas wrote. The research shows that people who favoured the official account of 9/11 were generally more hostile. Well, that's certainly been my experience, I must say, although is that simply because I happen to be on the side which is against that, so I am the target of the hostility? Sorry, this is me talking now. Am I the target of the hostility? That's the question. Is it, if I were a skeptic, would I be saying, well, these conspiracy theorists are the most brutal? And yeah, we can be. Not me, but certain elements. There is a thug element in the conspirasphere, which I've talked about before. I'll carry on reading. So among people who comment on news articles, those who discount the official government accounts of events like the 9/11 attacks, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, outnumber believers by more than 2 to 1. That means that pro-conspiracy commenters are those who are now expressing what is considered conventional wisdom, while the anti-conspiracy commentators represent a small beleaguered minority that is often scoffed at and shunned. Our time has come. Perhaps becoming frustrated at their alleged mainstream viewpoints are no longer considered as such by the majority. Those who are anti-conspiracy commenters often showed anger and disgust in their posts. They bloody do, I'll tell you. Is another quote from Douglas. The research showed that people who favoured the official account of 9/11 were generally more hostile when trying to persuade their rivals, said the study. Also, it seems that those who do not believe in conspiracies were not just hostile, but fanatically attached to their own conspiracy theories as well. The researchers said that according to the anti-conspiracy holders, their own theory of 9/11, which says 19 Muslims, none of whom could fly commercial airliners with any proficiency, pulled off an amazing surprise attack under the direction of a man on dialysis, Osama bin Laden, who was living in a cave somewhere in Afghanistan, is unwaveringly true. Meanwhile, conspiracists, on the other hand, did not have to pretend to have a theory that completely explained the events of 9/11. Well, there is a theory that completely well, it certainly completely explains the... This is me talking again. Completely explains the destruction of the World Trade Center, and that's in the book Where Did the Towers Go by Dr. Judy Wood. I'll continue with the text. Quote, for people who think 9/11 was a government conspiracy, the focus is not on promoting a science-specific rival theory, but in trying to debunk the official account, unquote, the researchers said. Well, that's true. However, there is an alternative theory, a specific rival theory, and, well, there's several, actually, and some are better than others. Okay, now we have a report from... As reported by Veterans Today, in short, this new study by Wood and Douglas suggests that the negative stereotype of the conspiracy theorist, a hostile fanatic wedded to the truth of his own fringe theory, accurately describes the people who defend the official account of 9/11, not those who dispute it. And there's a subtitle here, a conspiracy theory about a conspiracy theory. The study also found that conspiracy believers discuss historical context, like viewing the JFK assassination as a precedent for 9/11 more than the antis. It also found that conspiracy believers do not like to be labelled as such. These and other findings are contained in the new book Conspiracy Theory in America by the political scientist Lance DeHaven Smith, which was published last year by the University of Texas Press. He explains why people don't like to be labelled as conspiracy theorists. Well, the term has a stigma, yeah, it does, and this is why see, it's factually true, but I don't mind being called a conspiracy theorist. I sometimes refer to myself as such. Back to the text. The CIA's campaign to popularise the term conspiracy theory and make conspiracy belief a target of ridicule and hostility must be credited, unfortunately, with being the most successful propaganda initiatives of all times, he said. And he further noted that essentially those who use the term as an insult are doing so as the result of a well-documented, undisputed and historically accurate conspiracy by the CIA to cover up the JFK assassination or not. You be the judge. There's a list of sources here. Oh, it's very, very interesting. I mean, this is good news, isn't it? It is. However, that's not quite the end of the story. Right, so that's it. But now, what happened next was that she told me, no, that was all wrong. Which is strange, because I spoke to her in October 2016, so that's just under 2 years ago. I told her about it, and it was her own work that had done it, and she said, oh no, and she showed me, she said, oh no, it's all written up in Snopes. Wonderful internet, easy, and like the Daily Beast or Breitbart, these other things. It's kind of left-wing version of Breitbart, I think, Snopes. So it's all dark here, you can't see me, because I'm just going to a really dark bit, so you won't be able to see me for a while. Hope that's alright, you don't mind not seeing my pretty face, do you? Okay. Cutting across a park, actually. So she said that it was all a misunderstanding, and they've revised it. And what? I spoke to her at the end, and she said, "Look, just email me, and I'll send you the details." So I'm going to do that, and I'll add it on to this video if she gets back to me in time, because I don't want to spend too long messing around. I want to upload it, but I will. If I don't, I'll write an article about it. I might do that either way, because I mean, it's a shame, but then that's it. She basically said, no, this idea that conspiracy theorists are more rational is actually not true. It was a mistake. And I actually did write to Professor Douglas, and she did write back very promptly and sent me a link to the article here, which is in Snopes, the fact checker. I described it as a left-wing version of Breitbart. That was a mistake. It's more kind of Snopes is actually there to essentially debunk urban myths and things like that. It's not necessarily skeptic. It just gets to the bottom of all kinds of strange ideas that are going out there and attempts to shed light on them to see if it's true. Excuse me. So, I know, I guess it makes me yawn already, just the thought of that. On the other hand, Snopes also appears to play the role of browsers such as Rebutter and the various apps you get and the various add-ons, which always provide alternative information. That is, they provide the other side of the story whenever you Google something. Now, I had a bit of a shock the other day because I was looking at Facebook, and there was a story which was Vladimir Putin's passport found next to the bench where the Skripals were attacked in Salisbury, which of course is an ironic joke. But guess what? Snopes tagged it, and I looked and suddenly saw this has been tagged by Snopes. Two things about this relating to Snopes is, firstly, Snopes uses bots which don't have a very good sense of sarcasm programmed into them. And secondly, they must have some kind of contract with Zuckerberg on Facebook to be allowed to do that on Facebook, which in itself I think is somewhat sinister. That they are playing this kind of official role on one of the world's biggest media sites. I wonder why that is. Because usually it's all very one-sided. But anyway, here we go. Here's the article. And the good news is you'll know when I'm putting in my comments, because I have to use a special voice for this article. Did a scientific study prove that conspiracists are the most sane of all? A conspiracy theory website drew a series of baseless or incorrect conclusions, baseless and incorrect, from a study that looked at online comments of 9/11 truthers. The claim is, a scientific study demonstrated that conspiracy theorists are generally more sane than other people. Rating, false. That's a good start. You could end it there, really, couldn't you? Anyway, let's carry on. Back in 2014, the decidedly pro-conspiracy website Natural News, I thought they were going to say Hapanwo there for a moment, because I did write about this myself back then, whose founder Mike Adams sometimes served as a guest host for Alex Jones's InfoWars, gleefully exclaimed that science has proved conspiracy theorists are generally more sane than people who hold more conformist views, as evidenced by their publication of an article headlined "Scientific Study Reveals Conspiracy Theorists Most Sane of All." In point of fact, the study referenced that the article, whose sole dataset comprised of comments left by readers of news articles that included the term 9/11 and similar keywords, did not make such a claim. The paper, titled "What About Building 7? A Social Psychological Study of Online Discussion of 9/11 Conspiracy Theories," made a series of qualitative observations based on 2,174 collected comments, which was as follows. And here is basically Professor Douglas's conclusion. We found that that's not her voice. We found that conspiracist commentators were more likely to argue against the opposing interpretations and less likely to argue in favour of their own interpretation, while the opposite was true of conventionalist commenters. That's actually, as I've explained, I don't think that's maybe true in many cases, and indeed discrediting the official story certainly is important. But there is an alternative explanation, and several researchers have talked about it, and the most important of which is Dr. Judy Wood. And there's several other avenues of research into other elements of the 9/11 attacks, which say something very different. Back to the text. Conspiracist comments were more likely to explicitly put forward an account than conventionalist comments were. That sounds like a contradiction between the two. Okay. Third one. Conspiracists were more likely to express mistrust and make more positive and fewer negative references to other conspiracy theories. Right, now this is actually to be expected. This is to be expected. Now, this ties in with what Michael Barkan calls the cultic milieu. And this is something I don't deny, that if you happen to believe in a conspiracy theory or something like that, and someone else asks you another question, which is like, do you believe in ghosts, do you believe in UFOs, you are far more likely to answer yes if you believe, say, 9/11 was an inside job, than if you don't. And vice versa, incidentally. And Michael Barkan came up with the idea of the cultic milieu, which is basically conspiracy theoretical ideas plus paranormal research and various kinds of fringe spirituality and consciousness research and things like that. And he called that the cultic milieu. And it does exist. It has to. I am a prime example of the cultic milieu. I think that's a cultic milieu is a somewhat derogatory term, but it's one that does. It is still, I think, real. It is definitely true. Fourth point here, point to the conclusion. Conspiracists were largely unwilling to apply the conspiracy theory label to their own beliefs, and objected when others did so, lending support to the long-held suggestion that conspiracy belief carries a social stigma. Well, that's true, it does carry a social stigma, but I don't mind the term conspiracy theory being applied to some of the things I come up with, simply because it's factually true. However, I think, and I know Professor Douglas disputed this when she was at the BHA event, which you follow the links in the description box, you'll find that. The BHA event in 2011, that's the conspiracy theory day at Conway Hall, she did say that belief in official stories was not a conspiracy theory. Excuse me. Well, I say it is. Believing that 19 hijackers caused 9/11 is a conspiracy theory. It's believing that anything that happens involving more than one person operating secretly behind the scenes to coordinate some kind of act, usually a nefarious one. There are occasionally nice versions of this, like, for instance, planning someone's secret birthday party. That's an idea of it. That's a pleasant conspiracy theory. But that is by definition a conspiracy theory. If you suggest that, if you say that is happening, then you are a conspiracy theorist. And sometimes you're proven true, and then you're simply called a historian or a journalist. It's interesting, actually. I was looking into this about how many conspiracy theories are proven true. All you have to do is Google conspiracy theories proven true, and you'll find hundreds of entries. And an awful lot of what we call history is, in many cases, simply conspiracy theory reviewed in retrospect, like Watergate, for example. And when I wrote back to Professor Douglas, I did make this point to her, and I think I probably mentioned that later on in the commentary. Here we are. Here's the last one. Conventionalist arguments tended to have a more hostile tone. That's true. Okay, so we're going to go back to Snopes now, and I'll put on my Snopes voice. Natural News derived their assertion that conspiracists are more sane from combining the latter observation about tone with their own severely flawed understanding of sampling biases. The researchers noted that they were surprised to find it is now more conventional to leave so-called conspiracist comments than conventional ones. Of the 2,174 comments collected, 1,459 were coded as conspiracists and 715 as conventionalists, the researchers wrote. That means that pro-conspiracy commenters are the ones now expressing what is considered conventional wisdom, while the anti-conspiracy commenters represent a small beleaguered minority that is often scoffed at and shunned. That inherently flawed interpretation relied on the somewhat terrifying assumption that the views expressed in the comment sections of news articles about the September 11th terrorist attacks were a representative cross-section of the population as a whole. A rather harrowing notion. In fact, it should be unsurprising that the majority of the comments collected by the researchers were pro-conspiracy. Pro-conspiracy indeed, and that is explicitly the kind of comments the researchers searched for. For each article that resulted from these searches, the keywords like 9/11, the public comments sections were read, and from these we extracted verbatim all the relevant comments regarding 9/11 conspiracy theories. The study did not even capture a representative sample of the comments left on the news stories about 9/11, much less the views of the broader population about 9/11. Therefore, the study cannot be used to make the claim that pro-conspiracy commenters are those who are now expressing what is considered conventional wisdom. With regard to the tone of comments, it's unclear where Natural News got the idea that the hostile tone of the comments responding to 9/11 conspiracy indicates a lack of sanity. But the study at no point makes any claim about comparative sanity levels. The study did conclude, however, that conspiracism is rooted in several higher order beliefs, such as an abiding mistrust of authority, the conviction that nothing is quite as it seems, and the belief that most of what we're told is a lie. The study also noted that their results aligned with previous observations that conspiracy theories rely heavily on errant data rather than on crafting coherent alternative explanations. If a hostile tone betrays a lack of sanity, then Natural News, an outlet whose operator created an entire website named Hogwatch, dedicated to harassing Parkland school shooting survivor and gun control activist David Hogg, must be in desperate need of some rationality. Okay, so, well, there's not like an ad here, except state that the hostile tone is actually, I don't know if the word is sanity, but a hostile tone often indicates that a person is losing an argument. They're losing rationally. That is always the case. The first person that gets angry is always the person who's been cornered on a logical basis, and their logic is broke down. You often get that. It's kind of cognitive dissonance. It's a kind of ego thing. People don't like to be proven wrong, so when someone proves you wrong, you start getting, some people get angry, and that's a sign. That, I think, is a sign of, well, it's not the word sanity, but the sound of, it is a sign that they are taking the wrong position. And you see that anywhere you go. You see that everywhere you go. The people will get people like. If you go back to the Vietnam War, there were the hawks and the doves, the America, the populations who were pro the war and anti the war. And the hawks outnumbered the doves because the hawks thought the war was a good idea. It should be an easy victory for America. But as the war dragged on for years and years, and bodies kept coming back, the number of doves grew, and what happened was, it's very, very interesting. You get this distillation effect, because the hawks did shrink in number, but the ones that were left became far more strident, as Richard Dawkins would say. They became far, far more convinced, open, and very belligerently certain that they were in the right. And you get that everywhere. You get that. You see it like, well, look at David Icke. Look at the people who've been attacking David Icke, the so-called anti-fascists. They're getting angry because they're being proven wrong. And so that I think it does indicate that the official story believers are in the wrong, and maybe on a subconscious level they know they're in the wrong and they don't like it. They don't like it. So, well, and again, I don't find this news unwelcome. It's disappointing that the original article wasn't quite what Natural News and myself thought it was, but it doesn't completely disprove the idea that disprove the idea that conspiracy theorists are more rational. Maybe sane is the wrong word, but also it has absolutely no bearing on the factual elements of whether these things are true or false. That's an important point. The factual elements. And of course, this was almost irrelevant. It was almost irrelevant to this entire subject of this entire film, because this is not the remit of Professor Douglas. In fact, as I think I might have explained already, I will be explaining, some people asked her, look, do you believe in any conspiracy theories? And she sort of shrugged and said, not really. She didn't seem very positive about that. This is the thing. It's and I've spoken before. I mean, I can't remember why I wrote this actually. because they talk about this being the article from Snopes talks about this being conventional wisdom, which a large proportion of the population, or the majority of the population, believe in, and the people who don't are beleaguered and snubbed. Well, there was a poll done a couple of years ago by Gallup, the famous statistics agency, that said when taken as a whole, conspiratorial ideas are held by a significant proportion of the population. And they name the Kennedy assassination in particular because the Kennedy assassination, ever since it happened to the present day, has the majority of people have disbelieved the official story. And in this particular case, which was done in, I think, in 2011, the figure was 51%. 51% believe Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone. And that has been even higher at in certain other places. There's a lot of other people asked about the moon landings. I think 11% of people doubt the moon landings. As for 9/11, it varies between around about 10 to 40%, depending on how you word it. There are more people who are lie hops than my hops. Lie hops, let it happen on purpose. It's a Pearl Harbor thing where you put the defences down because you want it to happen. Whereas I myself am a my hop and made it happen on purpose. That is, it's an inside job. But up to 40% of people question 9/11. That is not a beleaguered minority, and that is maybe not the majority, but it is a significant minority, a very sizable one. When it comes to things such as UFOs, you're approaching. I think it was. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but if memory serves, about 30 to 35% of people believe the government is lying about UFOs and has decisive evidence about UFOs, which they're keeping from the public. Which is odd when you think about it, because when I did Dreaming Saucers, I had about like 20-25 people. Why aren't 40%? Why didn't 40% of the people in Oxford come along? What it actually means that hardcore firebrands like me are actually a very small tip of a huge silent iceberg, and that's very interesting. And I'll say more. Maybe I'll do another video about that, because part of my challenge may be to not necessarily to educate, but to inspire people to take action on what they already know to be true. So, very interesting indeed. I do not have any regrets about this update in this information. Oh dear. That doesn't mean, well actually it doesn't mean that conspiracy theories not more rational. It just means that this particular study was wrong. I mean, you know what I think about. I do consider myself a rational person. I endeavour to be rational. But it's just at that particular time, in this particular study, this wasn't the case, which is a shame. Incidentally, some smart aleck in the comments section, I predict this, is now going to make a comment saying, Ben, you fancy her, don't you? You fancy Professor Karen Douglas, and that's why you went. This is why you're making this video about her. This is why you went to her talk. This is why what's going on about her is because you got a hot for her. You want to get into her pants, don't you? And stuff like this. This was someone in comments is going to say that, all right? And well, I'm not going to dismiss what you're saying, okay? Completely. That's actually not why I went to see her. That's not why I'm interested in what she has to say at all. But the thing about it is, I mean, she is superficially attractive. What I mean by that is she's nice looking. I must admit that. I do find her superficially attractive. Listen, I say superficially because I don't know her. I mean, she might be a total bitch. She still can't see me. You can see me now. Can you see me coming out of the gloom as I approach the road? One downside of this new camera: no nightlight. You do get that on my old camera. You don't get it on this one. She might be a total bitch if you get to know her. I don't know her. See what I mean? I just don't know her. But you see, that's not why I'm doing this. That's not why I went to this particular event. That's not why I'm interested in what she has to say. But the fact of the matter is, it is something that
we have to remark on, because it can be disarming for a man like me. Well, a straight guy anyway, if you're not gay. It can be disarming, and you see, there are some blokes who would be completely and utterly unable to deal with Professor Douglas in a critical manner. Basically because she's a bit of a blinded bird, ain't she, Rodney? You know, as Del Boy would say. And for some men, they cannot deal in a critical manner with women like that. Whenever sex is involved or sexual attraction, it becomes impossible to really be objective. I mean, it's for some guys. It's not. It makes it more difficult, but it does not make it impossible. It does not make it impossible. So, I think I have dealt with Professor Douglas and what she says in exactly the same as I would if she was an old man with a long beard who was sort of overweight and smelly, and I wouldn't look admire in any way. Okay, so where were we? I'm glad I got that out of the way anyway. Right, yeah, 7 more questions. Somebody talked about QAnon and said, well, hang on, the Trump won the election, yet his side are more conspiratorial than the Democrats. And she said, that's true, I don't know why that is. She said that more research needs to be done on that. Well, you know what I think about that. What else is there? I'm just going to get under a light and just stand, because it's just walking along like this with the street lights is really difficult. I want to get home. It's almost half past midnight. I want to get home. Got work tomorrow, but I want to just finish this. Where are? Somebody asked. Several people asked her if she believes in any conspiracy theories. She said no, but she did say conspiracy is sometimes true. So maybe she should rethink that. I don't know. Maybe she should look at some of them. There was a long discussion about the journey to conspiracy theories from other ideas, which I didn't really follow very well. Presumably I'm a living example of that. This is what I mean by being on the couch. Someone asked a question about whether there was a connection between conspiracy theorists and the far right and religious extremists, and of course there is. That is true. It exists. There is, as I said, there's an overlap between the conspiratorial world and the alt-right. I myself am not. I'm a part of the conspirasphere, but I do accept there's an overlap. It doesn't mean that people on the alt-right are evil. I think they make mistakes. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, right, where is it? Oh, she said that extremists on the left and right believe in conspiracy theories. Now, it's true. I mean, I touched on this before. There are left-wing conspiracy theories. But according to the American study, the more right-wing you were, the more likely you were to be a conspiracy theorist. But it depends, I suppose, on how you define conspiracy theory. And she said even the definitions haven't really been worked out yet properly, which is really, because I can define it very simply. It's just an idea that there is something out there. There's a conspiracy going on, and you have a theory about it. It's that simple. And of course, it's never that simple, though, is it, for these academics? But this is quite. But the left. There are left-wing conspiracy theories. You could call I suppose you call the anti-globalist movement and the Occupy Net. You could call those left-wing conspiracies, in a sense that they believe that they do believe there is an evil cabal, an evil elite ruling the world. They just believe these are like corporate capitalists, a corporate capitalist class that is controlling everything. They don't see them as anything else than that, whereas I see it differently, of course. Oh, this is funny, right? There was a conference, Dr. Douglas didn't go to it, but there was a conference on conspiracy theory research, psychological research, and guess where they chose to hold it as a venue? Guess what venue they hired to hold this conference? The Bilderberg Hotel in Oosterbeek, Netherlands. That must have been some sort of an in-joke. It must have been. They can't have ended up there by accident. But of course, She said, "Oh, that'll get all the conspiracy theories." Oh, is belief in the devil a conspiracy theory? That was really interesting. Well, I suppose there are sort of like I suppose there are demonic elements to this. I mean, that's a big subject, but I mean, I've spoken before, and many other people my side thought about the possibility of a malevolent supernatural force at work in the world, and I think it's true. And I've talked about that on other videos. Oh yeah, someone said that when some conspiracy theories are proven true, this guy said, it just gives license for conspiracy theorists to go and invent others. And again, I think that's a very pejorative way of saying something very different. When some theories are found to be true, and there's a whole list, you get websites of conspiracy theories proven true. It proves, in a sense, that calling things a conspiracy theory doesn't make them untrue, and therefore you look around yourself and wonder, well, what others are true. It's not given license to make things up. Someone made a comment about sociopaths. 5% of people are sociopaths. Half of them are stupid, they end up in jail. The other half are clever and they end up in government. I thought I was quite witty. I'll have to remember that one. Hope I can reuse it. Well, all in all, I found it an interesting evening, and I'm glad I went. And it was about showing the flag, yeah, but I wanted to hear what she had to say. Professor Karen Douglas is one of these people who is like, it's one of these people I think we all need to look at, simply so we can get a rounded view of what the situation is with the conspiracy. And you can only do that by listening to people who disagree with you, people who looked at you from another perspective. I think that you can become more certain that you're right. And one of the reasons I'm certain I'm correct about the things that I talk about on Hapanwo is because I have made an effort to look at both sides of the story. I have made an effort to falsify my hypotheses. Someone actually in the audience turned around and said to me, "Oh, you're brave coming here, being a conspiracy theorist." She laughed. She was friendly, you know. What else do you... I talked about UFOs, and she said this. "Oh, well, are you sure the UFOs are real? You know, have you thought about UFOs being swamp gas and stuff like that?" And I said, "Yes. It's a falsifiable hypothesis. It's just I don't believe it has been falsified. The evidence for UFOs leads in the other direction, that the extraterrestrial hypothesis is correct." So it's a way of... I suppose it's a way of you understanding, having a more holistic view of the situation, and I think that's healthy. I think it is intellectually honest, and to be honest, it makes things more interesting. I just don't want to live in an echo chamber all the time, and especially now with the other things I've said about the bloody truth movement falling apart and being, you know, I mean, I've effectively left the truth movement now. I think I mentioned that did I mention that in my previous video? I put a post up on her Hapanwo Voice about that if you want to see it. If I didn't mention it before, but I basically said I want nothing more to do with the truth movement. I've changed some of my profiles on social media away from the symbol of the anti-New World Order symbol. I've got rid of it. This doesn't mean I factually repudiate anything that the truth movement says about various conspiracy theories. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop what I do on Hapanwo. It doesn't mean I'm even going to change particularly very much what I'm doing on Hapanwo. It just means I don't want to be associated with a movement that is now fragmenting into a series of sectarian groups that are just infighting continuously over mostly completely irrelevant personal matters. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. It's made me despair for the human race, quite frankly, and for the future of the world. But I'll say more about that in another video. I'm rambling now. I'm going off topic, but I just think that I just listen to what the skeptics have to say. I go along to skeptic meetings. I'm on the mailing list for Oxford Skeptics in a pub. I've been to TAM London. Listen, look at my skeptic talk. I'll put a link in the description box to that. But I'd like to say thanks to Professor Karen Douglas for a very interesting evening, and to everyone at Greenwich Skeptics in the pub. For hosting the event, hosting her and hosting the rest of us, and I hope to go to others in the future. When an interesting one comes up, I'll go along to it. So, oh God, I'm not home. I've got to go home now. I'm not home yet. I will be soon. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.